Welcome to First Responder Friday. My name is Conrad Weaver. I'm your host for the program today, and we're coming to you live from my studio here in Emmitsburg, Maryland. And in just a minute, we're going to have a very special guest on this September 11th. And so I'll introduce him in just a minute. I want to give you a quick update on our film project. If you're following us on Facebook, you know that we are working on a documentary film called PTSD 911. Just to clarify, it is not about September 11th. It's about those first responders who are dealing with post-traumatic stress as a result of their work: firefighters, police officers, dispatchers, EMTs, paramedics, and the like. And so we've been working on this film, and as many of you know, we've had a fundraiser that we've had ongoing, and I just want to give you a quick update. We've raised a little over $7,000 toward our overall goal of about a little over $500,000. So we have a little ways to go, but we're confident that we're going to get there. We have some amazing people that we're working with from around the country, some organizations that are really firmly invested with us and are going to be helping us raise this money. And so we are excited to be able to start working on this project as soon as we have the funds in place that we can move forward. But so I just want to give you an update on that. If you are interested in helping to sponsor our film or to engage with us, go to our website, ptsd911movie.com, and there's information there. You can look at the trailer that's here, and you can also click on Honor a First Responder. So perhaps you have a first responder in your life, a friend, a family member, that you want to honor them through through a credit in the film. You can click on here and make a donation of $100 or more, and you can get their name in the credits in honor of the first responder or in memory of a first responder who perhaps gave the ultimate sacrifice. You can do that as well on our website. And so I encourage you to do that. We've had quite a few people that have done that over the last couple of months, and so we're really excited and thankful for everyone who's made a contribution to our film. And we will be so excited to bring this film to you and to include their name in the credits as we work on this film project. Well, today we have a very special guest. Today, as you know, is September 11th. It's the 19th anniversary of the attacks against America. And as I was thinking about this morning, I just thought about where I was that day. I was living in Colorado. I was working in a brand new position at this company I was working for, and I got to work, and someone mentioned it about a plane hitting a tower. And so I went to CNN. CNN's website had crashed. And so I then turned on the television and saw the stuff that was happening, and it was an amazing, gut-wrenching, sad day for all of us. And those memories still are very, very vivid to me today. And ironically, or maybe serendipitously, when I moved to Emmitsburg, Maryland, Emmitsburg is also the home of the National Fallen Firefighter Memorial. It's just about a half a mile from my house here, and I've been over there many times looking at that plaque of all the fallen firefighters who died on September 11th. And there's 343 names on that plaque of firefighters who went into those towers and ended up dying. And I'll never forget that number because that's also the number of my house. I live at 343. And so it's really a kind of a serendipitous thing that it sticks to me and it has impacted me. But I think more than me, this is not about me today. It's about the first responders who have provided their services on that fateful day. And today we are honored to have Danny Farrar with us. Danny is a former first responder, and he's now the CEO of Soldier Fit, and he's also the founder of Platoon 22. Danny, welcome to First Responder Friday.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so this is a really, I mean, it's been 19 years. Can you believe that?
No, I was actually, when they said it, when they said it this morning, I was like, it's crazy because I'm involved with a group that was there, and they had actually posted on the page yesterday that, they want to start planning something big for the 20th anniversary. And you're just like, man, 20 years. That's one, I'm getting old. And two, man, you're like, God, I can't believe it's been that long ago.
Yeah, so So let's go back a little bit. Tell me a little bit about, where you grew up and how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, I grew up in Southern Virginia, about an hour south of Richmond. And for me, I was adopted as a kid. I was molested by my brother and sister. So I never really felt like I had a home there. My personality was really opposite of the family that adopted me. I wasn't into the same things that they were, and that caused me to kind of grow up with my parents constantly telling me I was lazy and I had dumb dreams for the things that I wanted to do. Just different personalities, right? And so I ended up going, did Parble in school. I barely graduated high school, and from there I was like, you know what? I'm from Podunk. You had one or two options, which was to get on. If you wanted to be successful, you wanted to get on with the railroad, or you wanted to do electrical work for the power company, which neither one appealed to me. And so I went and joined the Army. Joined the Army in '98, and that ultimately put me on the path to 9/11, and that's how I wound up where I'm at now.
Hmm. So what on 9/11, what were you doing and where were you? What were you doing?
I was actually stationed with the 3rd U.S. Infantry at the time, the Old Guard. They are actually, a lot of people think when they think of the Old Guard, they think of their most famous platoons. I was actually on the U.S. Army drill team. They also think of Honor Guard Company, which ironically is just a bunch of tall people. You have to be at least 6'2" to be in the unit. They think of Caisson, the guys that are pulling the horses in Arlington, the cannons, and they think of the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. And so those are all called specialty platoons, where we were all in the same company. But at that point in time, I was hasn't joined the specialty company yet. I was still in Charlie Guard, and we did funerals and escorts and the whole 9 yards. And that day, I was getting ready for what was called a cordon. It was either for the Prince or the King of Egypt, and I'm upstairs in the off post room and I'm getting my uniform put together for the day. And one of the privates comes up and goes, "Man, a plane just hit the World Trade Center." And I was like, in my mind at the time, I'm like, how the hell do you fly into one of the world's tallest buildings? But I'm thinking it's a prop plane.
Hmm.
Somebody just made a mistake or something. And so we finish getting dressed, go downstairs, and I mean, we're all standing around in our dress blues. We're getting ready, like I said, to go off to do this cordon. And we're watching in the off post room downstairs, well, in the lobby downstairs, the news footage, and then the second plane hits,
Hmm.
and pretty much instantaneously at that point, everybody knows, this is an attack. But still, in that moment, like, I'm in DC, right?
Hmm.
Like, you want to be there, ground zero. You want to be trying to do what you can to make a difference, and but you think you're not going to get in the fight, you
Hmm.
know. And then lo and behold, it comes down, man. It was like, yo, a plane's just hit the Pentagon.
Hmm.
And the company that I was in at the time, Charlie Company, we were the ready platoon. So, I mean, ready company. So the Old Guard's other mission is protection of DC. So whenever there's riot control, or if they need additional soldiers, like we used to practice, if we've got to clear out the Congress and everybody and move them to a off-site location and protect them, that was our primary role. So when that happened, they were like, "It's on. Get out of uniform. Go get changed. Get everything put together. Draw riot gear. Draw weapons, and get ready to go."
Wow. So then, were you then called into the Pentagon then, or where'd you
Yeah,
end up then?
it's crazy because looking back at it now, um, it's crazy how confusing it was. And I'm talking about like over official net.
Hmm.
Like, I mean, we were getting everything. We were hearing that there's multiple bombs going off in D.C. We were told there were car bombs in D.C. We had heard that the White House had been attacked. There, you've got these low flying, uh, you know, fast movers, these jets flying overhead, securing the airspace. And I remember, sitting in there, getting ready to head to the Pentagon, and the base is obviously fenced in. And I remember looking out at the civilians, and and just seeing like an eerie fear, right? Like, people were. It's one thing to be a little unnerved to be a soldier or a first responder. You have training.
Hmm.
You know, you have resources. Um, if you're going to have to go fight, like at least you're prepared for it, right?
Mm. Right.
But for to see the civilians that had, I mean, especially in a place like DC, they don't have any, you know, they're not allowed to have weapons there. You know, not going to be on them anyway. I can imagine the extra level of fear that had to be on that. But
Mm.
they loaded us up, and we took a route to the Pentagon. And you know, I'll never forget, man. You came ran that the Pentagon for the first time, and you can see it smoking
Mm.
as you're coming up, because we came around the backside of where the plane hit, and you can smell it.
Mm.
Like you can smell it before you get there, and you come around the outside of it, and I'll never there was this wall that sheared down, and I mean, literally, it looks like somebody just, you've seen the photos, it looks like somebody just
Hmm.
cuts the wall, right?
Hmm. And
And I
those are
remember,
thick walls too. They're
yes.
they're
And,
beefy.
and and listen, this could be folklore. I don't know if this part is true, but at least this is what they told us, was that that side had just been reinforced. Like, I don't know what
Mm.
reinforced a building means, but
Hmm.
they said that of all the sides that it could have hit, it actually hit the best side for us to hit. But I remember looking up, and you're looking in it. It looks like looking into a dollhouse, right? Like when you see the backside of a dollhouse and you see
Hmm.
everything in there. And there was just this one desk, man. I think it was like on the third floor, and it didn't look, all this rubble around it. A plane had obviously hit the building, and not to mention, like, once I got inside the Pentagon and saw what it looked like, it looked like no, but in that one room, it didn't even look like it'd been touched. It looked
Wow.
like, I mean, it looked like perfect. The desk was there, the chair was there, everything, and you're just sitting there like, man, that's crazy.
Wow. What was your mission there then?
Our first mission there was to secure the area. So we got there, established a perimeter, um, made sure that we started tracking who was going and coming, and relatively rapidly, they got a chain link fence put up around the area, and then they ended up bringing in extra. I'm assuming they were contractors. I mean, I don't know for a fact, but I'm assuming they were contractors. And the contractors took over the external security side of the house. At which point in time, we in turn moved into remains removal
Hmm.
and helping USAR Montgomery, which is actually my first experience with the fire department. What ultimately made me go join Montgomery County Firefighters. I was a career firefighter for 5 years. Was my first time working with them. So we ended up going in and doing the remains removal, and then helping them try to build shore the place up. I mean, they were doing all the technical work. We were just doing the grunt work. And then obviously moving debris, trying to get everything taken care of.
Hmm. What What's the biggest thing that sticks in your mind that day from that day?
Oh man. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, if I've got to, I mean, I don't even think I could tell you the biggest thing, man. I mean, I was there for probably 10 to 14 days. Um, I would say a couple things that really stuck out. The first thing for me is Donald Simmons. He was the first person I found. Um, I actually took the first team in to do remains removal, because they came in and said that they needed a sergeant and his team to go in. And so we didn't even know what we were going in for. I just volunteered. It was like, hey, send me. And we didn't have any. We didn't have any. It's so comical now, because these masks that everybody is wearing, that's about what we had going into the Pentagon, with asbestos and jet fuel, and people don't think about it. It's, maybe it's a little morbid to say or whatever, but I mean, you're literally in there breathing in people. You know
Mm.
what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Like that, because of how all of that stuff went down. So you go in, and we went in. If you think in your head about where the plane hit, we actually made entry into the far right corner.
Hmm.
And we walked in. It was bright. It was bright and sunny that day. It was hot. And we walked in battle dress uniform. some old, reminds me of old fence post gloves, like, not even like fancy gloves, like the cheapest gloves you could find, and a little, I'm gonna call it a COVID mask because that's where we'll see it as now. And you walk in and it's crazy because you walk into this building, it's like super bright outside, and you go inside and it's like the lights are out, man.
Mm.
I mean, the lights are done. All the drop ceilings have fallen out. There's wires laying all over the place. You're sloshing around in about knee deep water, because the fire department had just dumped so much water in the place trying to get the fire put out. And you're stumbling through there, and then we came around into an opening, and when we came in the opening, there was there was tons of rubble. I remember looking over to the right, and there was like a torso of an individual off to the right, and it looked like NCIS, because FBI was in there. They were categorizing the scene because it was a crime scene,
Mhm.
and they end up rolling this individual over and said, they pull his driver's license out, said his name, and that's how I knew it was. And then they told us, okay, you're clear to remove him. And so we, put him over on the gurney and start the process of bringing him out. And it's just so much rubble and debris that we just keep falling over on top of each other. And at one point in time, he falls over and his hand hits mine. He's got a wedding band on it.
Mhm.
And I'm like, for me, I'm like, damn, man, like there's somebody right now praying I ain't carrying this. And that had a pretty profound effect on me. And then from there, you go in, and we called it the widow's tent, but they brought these individuals in that, yeah, I still don't know why they brought them in, to be honest, but they brought them in, and the chaplains are in there, and you're just sitting there listening to these people cry. I mean, my tent was right next to it. I mean, it was damn near 24/7 crying. And one of the saddest sights I ever saw is, and this is what they said. You know how it is. It could have been true, could have not been true, but it makes sense at least. Was I remember they arrested that they had this guy in cuffs, and they were escorting him out, and they said that the reason, his head's down, he looks extremely despondent. They said the reason that he was escorted out was he had snuck in. He was trying to find his wife,
Mhm.
and you think back to like that, you're like, man, that is just, that's a kick in the gut. And you go into the Pentagon, and if anyone's listening, let me go ahead and dispel this ridiculous myth. When people say that it wasn't a plane that hit the Pentagon, that we didn't find plane parts, I pulled security on the plane parts. I moved the plane parts. I dug around the fuselage. Unless your rocket comes with two turbine engines, seat belts, and people, it was a rocket. I mean, it was an airplane. But you go digging through all of this, and you're you're sitting there, and then you find like the birthday card,
Mhm.
and you find the stuffed animal, and it's, for me, like, finding the remains, that part sucks. You're sitting there digging through, and then all of a sudden your hand is, you know in somebody, and you're like, oh my god. But for me, the harder part was that, it is, probably sounds odd that I would say the evidence of life, when,
Mhm.
because remains are evidence. But for me, when it became like, this, at some point in time, man, this was a living, breathing person that had hopes, had fears, and dreams. But no matter what fear they had, they never had the fear that that was how that day was going to play out on them.
Mhm.
Um, but the other thing that I remember, when we think about good things, the way that the community rallied, the way that, listen, I'm talking about, and more lighthearted, I got fat when I was out there. I mean, Burger King came in, Outback Steakhouse came in, Todd came in and set up a place to do all your laundry. Cell phone company came in and set up cell phone reception for everybody. Salvation Army will always get my money at Christmas time, because how much that organization stepped up and was bringing in socks and places and things for you to be able to change into. And I mean, you guys would go through and get a Whopper every day. I mean, they were just in there just making this food. And and feeding everybody that was doing it. Um, I will say that one of the most frightening moments in my life was at the Pentagon. We would work like 30 minutes on shift. We would come out again. It was just ridiculously hot, and so it was pretty taxing work. So they would take you in for 30 minutes. You'd have to go through the decon, come out and do it. And so in between that stuff, a lot of times you're just, you're laying in the tent napping. And I remember I woke up and I looked up at the roof of the Pentagon, and the firefighters are just, I mean, they are breaking their necks trying to jump off, trying to run off the top of the building. They're sliding down the ladder truck, and I'm like, what's going on? And then all of a sudden, an air raid siren went off,
Mm.
and we only had one exit out of the perimeter that the fence had locked in. And it was the craziest thing to see. Like if you've ever watched a nature show and saw like herd of zebra or gazelles get spooked, and the whole herd just goes shifts left.
Mm.
I mean, that's how it was. Everybody that was inside it almost simultaneously shifted,
Mm.
and everybody started running for the exit. And you're up on your feet running before you even realize that you're running. And I'm just sitting there running to get, trying to make it to this one point of egress. And I'm like, I'm waiting. I'm positive that the Pentagon's going to blow up, that I'm going to get hit in the back with, debris. And what had happened was they thought another plane was flying in.
Mm.
And so, those are the moments and things that stick out to you. Uh, it's nothing that I've always said that all the things that I've ever done, from when I was a firefighter, going into buildings that were on fire, getting in gunfights, jumping out of airplanes, the Pentagon, um, all of that stuff to me in the moment looks like a cheap special effect.
Mm.
It just That's just how I see it. It just doesn't, it just doesn't look real.
Mm.
Um,
Wow. What or how did 9/11 change you?
9/11 made me angry. I mean, I was an angry dude for a long time in my life. I'm not proud of it. My nickname used to be Rage. Uh, and for me, that event, that event, I mean, it pissed me off. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And then I volunteered to go to Iraq, and spent 2005 to 2006 gunning a Humvee. I did over 800 convoy missions. Been blown up, shot at, lost friends. Um, you know, that set me up on a path. I bottomed out ultimately. Coming back from the military, I got fired from the first job I ever did outside the army, and then got evicted, wound up homeless, ultimately bottomed out and attempted suicide. So I'd already had trauma in my life before that. So this was just another cog in the wheel for me. Um, that shifted me to the angry guy, I think. Iraq compounded that. Then I came back and I was a firefighter for 5 years. And, working on 16-year-old kids that had been shot, and having them bleed out. So for me, it started me on a path that I didn't know how difficult that path was going to be, until I came out the other side of it. But I have a deep appreciation uh, for what this country should be, what I think it aspires to be. Um, and even though I'll never stop anybody, like everybody says, I'll mess you up if you burn the flag. Like I believe in freedom. I believe in freedom to its core, man. Like freedom to its core means you can do what I don't like. That's how it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you still see things like that, and I look back and I'm like, man, I know you don't get it. I know you don't get it, because if you understood the sacrifice that the majority is willing to make, for me, for you, like you would understand that the majority is good. And that's what I'd love to see. I'd love to see the country back to September 12th.
Mm. Yeah, it was really a different time then. I mean, there was more flags flying across neighborhoods than I've ever seen before or since. And we're in a very different place today. So as you came out of that and you dealt with the anger, you got, you attempted suicide. How did you come back from that? What was the process like for you to deal with some of that trauma that you dealt with?
I mean, I think first of all, and this isn't universally true by no stretch of the imagination, but I think first of all, one of the big problems when people have PTS is is they had they had issues before, right? It just compounds it. So, I've probably since I was a young kid dealt with, depression off and on. PTS compounds it.
Hmm.
And it's for lack of better terms, it's dumb luck that I didn't I didn't die. So part of it's just dumb luck. The other part of it was for me when they locked the door to the psych ward and I heard it click behind them. For me, that was scarier than death. Like that, knowing that there's a potential that I could be locked up for the rest of my life, that freaked me out. And I don't know if I would use the term scared straight, but that's kind of what happened. And I knew that I needed to try to find a way to process stuff, put things in a positive light. And so I started training martial arts at a gym, and that really opened up a lot of opportunities for me. And I think that there are, and I think part of it is finding the right people in your life. Like I have to work. Me not working, uh, the devil's hands, idle hands at the devil's playground, right? Like for me not working, I'll find myself in trouble. Some people may say that's not a good coping mechanism, but I really don't care. It works for me. So for me, that's the big thing that it is. And then I ended up meeting my wife. We've been together 9 years now, married for 6. I met her like 6 months after my suicide attempt. And the front side of that, anyone's listening that is experiencing issues with PTS, when I first met my wife, I kind of tried to look at her as to be the savior, right? And this is what I try to explain to veterans time and time and again. Like nobody else can be your savior. Like you need to accept help, and that's a very important aspect to step up. Whether it's veterans, whether it's first responders, none of these guys or girls went into that job because they wanted to be the one that needed help. They went in that job because they wanted, whether they want to admit it or not, they wanted to be a hero. I mean, the definition is somebody that comes in and helps other people, and even at great risk to peril to their own life. Like they went into that job because they wanted to be a hero. May not necessarily be comfortable with the title hero, but that's what it is, right? Ordinary people doing extraordinary things in the face of extraordinary occurrences. And so those guys and girls, they don't want to be looked at as weak in their eyes. To say that I need help means I can't pull my weight and means I'm weak. And my point to people is that that's just not the case. Like I don't care who you are. Every single man, woman, and child on planet Earth has a breaking point. And yes, there's different levels of resiliency amongst us. Yes, there are things that you can do to help bolster your resiliency. But unless you're a straight sociopath, these things are going to have an effect on you. And, the one thing that we constantly try to talk about is, PTSD, it's really not a disorder. It's your brain doing what it's supposed to do. It's your brain trying to protect you from those traumas. But it's no different than opioid addiction. And I know you had heroin's grip. It's no different than alcoholism. Like you can't get help until you raise your hand and say, I need help. And then once the help comes, you have to be willing to accept it. But I'm proof. Like if you're willing to accept it, not only can you survive with it, you can thrive with it, right? You can go out and we built a good company. I've got I've got a wife. I've got two beautiful girls. Um, you can come out the other side of it, but you can only do it if you're willing to admit you have an issue and you need help and accept that help.
Hmm. Here the other day, I was running an ad for our film and had the trailer out there, and you get various comments because different people see it, people that wouldn't normally see our Facebook page, and I actually ended up deleting the comment just because it was so negative. But it was like, hey, why don't you just, if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen, that kind of thing. Just get out of our way. You're a liability to the rest of us. He's talking about law enforcement. What would you say to someone like that?
Listen, bravado and arrogance is often uh, the facade that unconfident people put on. I've yet to meet anybody uh, that actually did the deed, that actually went in and dealt with death, dealt with continued danger, uh, that would say something like that, right? A guy, you see a comment like that, right? And you think about, there's a nonprofit out there called Mission 22. Mission 22 is founded by a Delta Force veteran. Tell me that dude can't take the heat? Come on, bro.
About as
Like,
tough as they get.
yeah, I mean, just get out of here. Like, and I found that oftentimes people that say some stuff like that, they've never really been tested. They've never really done anything. And, like Mike Tyson says, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. One of the things, and I use this as an example to people all the time, people always say what they would or wouldn't do in these scenarios. I don't say what I would or wouldn't do even today, because every situation is different, right? And training goes a long way for that. I ended up getting in a gunfight in Iraq. My 50 jammed, and I grabbed my 203 and shot the 203. And in training, we used to, because we didn't have any ammo, we would scream out 203 to let everybody know we killed them with the 203. In the middle of a daggone gunfight, I'm sitting there yelled at 203 when I shot the gun. I'm like, how boot is that? But that's what the training does. A lot of times what people fail to grasp is that I've seen very few instances where PTS keeps somebody from performing their job in a combat environment, so to speak, right? I know guys that have PTS that will still go out there and rack and stack them. I know guys that suffer PTS from first responder. They'll still run that call. They'll still go in that building. Where it gets most people is when that adrenaline is gone, when that dump is gone, now they're sitting out here by themselves and they start reliving this shit, right? And you have time to try to process it. And a lot of times it's just not processed information. They haven't went through it. And that's where they get hemmed up. It's very seldom have I seen people that can't perform the job anymore. Most of the time, if somebody gets to that level, they self-regulate. And what I mean by that is they're like, listen, I can't do this anymore. They step away. So I don't ever look at it as like anybody is a hindrance to anyone else. But you're saying down there, and this is one of the things that I think is bad more so for police officers than I do think even the fire department. Like the fire department, you work 9 days a month, right? It doesn't seem like you work 9 days a month, but then even there, a lot of those guys are working overtime because they need the extra cash. But you're still getting some decent time off, right? You're getting time away from the front line, so to speak. Police officers really don't get that. And I think it's one of the travesties of the system in the country is that, think about it like this. If I deploy, I still get pulled off the line from time to time for R&R, right? Or I still rotate back stateside. Even if I have an insane tempo, I'm deploying for a few months, coming back for a month or two. Deploying for a few months, coming back for a month or two. And that's an insane tempo. Imagine that beat cop in Chicago or New York, and those guys and girls are going to work every day dealing with the same stuff. Like you're redlined every day. For no creature on earth was meant to be in fight or flight 24/7. And so it had to pretend that it doesn't affect people, and to pretend that it's not a very real thing. it's callous, and it is it's at the end of the day, it's ignorance.
Mhm. You have really an amazing story of where you've come from and what you've accomplished. So how did you launch Soldier Fit? What was that process? And you said you got into martial arts and
Yeah, man. I
yeah.
mean, I'm straight up here. I always tell folks I hate the term self-made man. Self-made men don't amount to much. I am here because people help me. I mean, Master Mike opened his doors to me, didn't charge me a daggone dime for rent. I didn't, to the day I die, I'll never pay that man back. The highest award in the company is the Master Mike Moses Award. My business partner, man, when I was homeless, we weren't business partners at the time, but when I was homeless, I was, man, I'm sitting down there friggin', he's finding couches for me to crash on. My wife is, well, if you ever read the book Traction, she's one of the best integrators I know. So she puts a lot of things into perspective and coalesces my world together very well. So I'm an idea guy. If I have anything going for me, it's that that I contribute to it. Is that I have a good idea by once every 3 years, and I get up and go to work every day.
Mm. And then you also helped found or you founded Platoon 22. What is that, and what do you guys do?
Yeah, so Platoon 22 is we started off as an awareness of veteran suicide and I also picked up some first responder awareness as well too. And a few years into it, what we started to learn and realize was that these guys and girls, where the real problem is coming in, is in transition, and a lot of them not being in the VA healthcare system. So what we started to work on was actually trying to bridge the gap. And we weren't the ones doing their VA stuff. We're not qualified for that. But we created relationships, especially at Martinsburg VA, where we could directly link people up and point them in the right direction, which the truth of the matter, it's just such a huge entity. I mean, it's just a huge building. If you're going to try to navigate the website, it's a lot. So being able to help that, we noticed was making a big difference. So then we ultimately decided that we wanted to build a veteran services center. And so that's what we're in the process of doing now. We've raised $1 million so far. And we look to open that center here in Frederick to serve the surrounding area by summer of next year.
Wow, that's awesome. That's really an amazing accomplishment. What would you say to that guy or that girl, woman who's in the middle of their stuff and they don't know where to go, they don't know what to do?
The first thing I would say to you is admit that you need the help, right? That again, time and time again, that's where people mess up, right? They don't admit that they need the help, and so often it evolves to other things: alcoholism, drug abuse, right? So you may have to fight this on multiple fronts and admit that you need help on multiple fronts. But the main thing that I try to explain to people is that one of my favorite quotes is by Steve Jobs. And Steve Jobs said, "You don't know how the dots are going to connect looking forward. You can only see how the dots connect when you look back." And for me, when I think about my suicide attempt, it probably sounds bad, but the thing that makes me sad isn't that I almost committed suicide, isn't that I almost wasn't here. What makes me sad is if I committed suicide, my two daughters wouldn't be here. And I see how they light up a room, right? And if you're a parent and you're struggling with this and you start to feel that belief that the world would be better off without you, like there's no two ways about it. Your kids are not better off without you. It doesn't happen, right? I mean, there's studies and studies that show what, even just, I hate to say normal, but even a regular death, like, you got cancer, you got in a car accident, what that does to kids if they happen at a young age. Add suicide on top of it, and now your children become much more likely to commit suicide themselves. So I try to explain to guys and girls, like, listen, man, you're going to make a permanent decision to a temporary problem if you're willing to get help for that temporary problem. So, be the hero to yourself, be the hero that you want it to be, and and say, hey, I need to take the rucksack off for a little while, but I'll put it back on when I get myself taken care of.
Hmm. In today's world, with all the stuff we see on the news, with I mean, there's additional stress with COVID. For all of our first responders. Then you add, all the riots and the anti-police movement. What would you say? I mean, here we are, 19 years after 9/11. Like you said, on September 12th, everybody was a patriot. What are your thoughts about where we are today in relation to that?
I mean, my true and honest thoughts are that we, there's one of my favorite sayings is hard men make, strong men make good times make weak men make hard times make strong men. Um, and I think we're in a point in time now that listen, whether people want to admit this or not, like we're spoiled. This country is just straight spoiled. So you have that side of it, and then not to get political, but I'm talking about government as a whole. I don't care who you vote for president. I don't care what you put in office, but you got people in Congress that have been there for 30, 40, 50 years, been serving since Reagan was president. And now they're going to tell you they're going to fix it. These folks ain't your friends, man. I'm not going to buy that, right? They live off of this division and stuff. So when you have all of that, and then you take COVID, where now, and we saw this for anybody deployed overseas, it's easy to militarize military age men or women that are sitting around with no opportunity and nothing to do. Well, what's happening right now? There's no opportunities, nothing to do. So, I look at folks and I try to explain to them as this is like, listen, you can occupy all circles. Like you can be in the middle. You can say that, hey, listen, there are a ton of good cops. God bless them. There are a ton of great first responders. God bless them. There's also some bad ones that really we need to weed out, or we need to improve the training on some, right? But also I'll look at everybody complaining about them, like to improve their training, we need to improve their funding. Like there's no such thing as a free ride. But more so than anything, like this is our country. This is us. This is no different than on a micro level going into your house and destroying your own house. Like that's what this is. And the only way we're going to get on the other side of this is if somehow some leader steps up on both sides and we bring it together, find common ground and move it forward. But making our family our enemies isn't going to do anybody any justice.
Yeah, yeah. Just I know, just in talking to some of my law enforcement friends, the added stress that's out there now is just really compounded, and not only stress for them, but their families and the people around them. And I think that, my vision is for the projects that I'm working on is really to honor our first responders and to provide the support to encourage our leaders to provide more resources for them,
Yeah.
so they can have better training, so that, when stress comes, which it will, that they're better prepared for it. And that's, I think, what we need to do. And as we as a community need to show our support for our first responders who take care of us, really. I mean, when I call 911, someone answers the phone, right?
Yeah.
And if we're not taking care of those folks, then our community is worse off. And so I think Danny, what you have done in the Frederick community and for the community that you serve, you've really stepped up in a big way to help those who have, in many ways sacrificed their lives for our country and for our communities. And so I say thank you
Uh,
for the work that you're doing and for the work that you continue to do. I know one thing that we haven't talked about is you have a special four-legged friend.
yes, I do.
Yeah, tell me
I
about
mean,
him or
he's
her.
laying right there back. So I have a service dog. His name is Eli. He's from Warrior Canine Connection, amazing organization located here, local to Maryland. They're out of Boyd's, and great little battle buddy we got down there. And in that instance, there was several times where when it was first brought up to me and recommended that I I get a service dog because one of our members is what's called a puppy parent, and she would bring her puppies in all the time for the social acclimation side of it. And I was said, hey, mate, you should get a service dog. And I was like, no, I was like, and again, this is like the thing that gets veterans and first responders in trouble is I'm like, there's somebody worse than me, right? And I fought it for a while, and then I ultimately decided to, I wanted to be able to go. I don't particularly care for being out in public too much. Don't like to travel too much, but my wife does, and my girls are going to want to as they get older. So I said, man, if it makes it better for them, then let's do it. And so I got paired with him January 23rd, and he's been my road dog since. My kids do fight me though, whose dog it is.
And I guess it's a good time too through the COVID, lockdowns to have
Yeah.
something like that. We actually we got a puppy, I think in early February, or no, I guess it was March. So we have this new dog that we've been training, which it really gave us a lot of joy throughout the lockdowns.
Yeah.
Also some frustration, but that's another story. So tell me a little bit, just as we close here, how can people get in touch with you? Tell me how can they, if they're in the area, where are your facilities located, where people can go work out, things like that.
Yeah.
Can I talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I'm pretty easy to get a hold to. Danny at soldierfit.com, DNNY, soldierfit, all one word. If you're looking to get your workout on, we are really all over the DMV. We're in Frederick, Gaithersburg, Columbia, Bethesda, Rockville, Silver Spring. We're also in Easton, PA, and Trexlertown, PA. We're in Sterling, Virginia, and we're also in Oshkosh, Pennsylvania.
Very cool. Very cool. And if someone wants to make a donation to Platoon 22, how would they do that?
Yeah, if you would go to platoon22.org, you would hit the donate button, and then it will give you the option to contribute directly to our capital campaign fund, which is that Network for Good link that you see there. And that allows the money to go directly towards the building of the center.
Very good. And the center again is scheduled to open
midsummer of next year is what we're looking at.
Okay, awesome. And you've raised almost
we're over $1 million. We got to update it. Yeah.
Yeah.
We got some outside that tracks money that came in directly to it, but we have additional funds that we got to update.
And your goal is $2 million for that?
$2 million. Yep.
Very good. And so that'd be a place for veterans to come to.
Yes. So the Maryland Department of Veteran Affairs will actually be housed in our building. So any veteran in the area that needs to get validated, they will actually be coming to our center regardless. But we'll have Warrior Canine Connection is having some space in there for some therapy sessions. We also have Martinsburg VA's medical center that's going to be in there that is going to be providing our counseling arm. And then this is in partnership with Goodwill. And so they will be doing a lot of our job training and placement and helping people navigate their wheelhouse as well.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, Danny, thank you so much for taking time to be on the program today. I really appreciate it. Appreciate your insight into the issues surrounding post-traumatic stress. And again, thank you for your service and for what you're doing for our community.
All right. Thanks so much, man. And thanks for making the movie. And I look forward to seeing it when it comes out.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for watching. This has been First Responder Friday. You guys have a great weekend, and we'll see you again next week.